Vaibhava.
Hare Krishna.
You can turn off the kirtan. The sound is not coming through very good. Your voice is very strong now.
Oh, that's serious. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Krishna Krishna Hare Hare. Hare Ram Ram Hare.
Your voice is very good.
Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare. Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare.
That one's very clear also, whoever it is. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udiraet. Nastapradeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavat Utama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki Ma Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desatarine Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Eva Cha Atitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnave Bhyo Namaha Namo Mahabharanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namani Gora Tvishe Namaha Panchatatmakam Krishnam Bhakta Rupa Sarupakam Bhaktavataram Bhaktakyam Namami Bhakti Shaktikam. Hey Krishna, Karuna Sindhu, Dinabandhu, Jagat Pate, Gopesha, Gopika, Kanta, Radha, Kanta, Namostute, Tapta Kanchana, Gaurange, Radhe, Vrindavaneshwari, Vishabhanu, Sute Devi, Pranamami Hari. Okay, we are at second canto, chapter 3, text number 20. Or did we read that one? We read that one, right? The snake holes.
Is it 3 or chapter 4? We should be in chapter 4:20.
No, chapter 3. Really? Let's see what happened. Maybe my bookmark failed again. Yeah. Okay. $4.21, huh?
Yes, Maharaj.
Yad anganya bidanya samadhi dotaya dhyan pashyanti tattvamatmana vedanti chaitat kavayo yatarucham same mukundo bhagavan prasidatam. Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna gives liberation by thinking of his lotus feet at every second, following in the footsteps of authorities. The devotee in trance can see the absolute truth. The learned mental speculators, however, think of him according to their whims. May the Lord be pleased with me. All right, let's have someone read.
Purport. The mystic yogis, after a strenuous effort to control the senses, may be situated in a trance of yoga, just to have a vision of the super soul within everyone. For the pure devotee, simply by remembering the Lord's lotus feet at every second, at once becomes established in real trance, because by such realization his mind and intelligence are completely cleansed of the diseases of material enjoyment. The pure devotee thinks himself falling into the ocean of birth and death and incessantly prays to the Lord to lift him up. He only aspires to become a speck of transcendental dust at the lotus feet of the Lord. The pure devotee, by the grace of the Lord, absolutely loses all attraction for material enjoyment and to keep free from contaminations. He always thinks of the lotus feet of the Lord. King Kulashekara, a great devotee of the Lord, prayed, Krishna stu Twadreya Pada Pankaja Panjaratam Advitame Vishatu Manasaruja Ansaha Prana Prayana Sanaye Kapa Vrata Pitaha Kanta Varudana Vidaus Paranam Kutastehe. Dear Lord Krishna, I pray that the swan of my mind may immediately sink down to the stems of the lotus feet of your Lordship and be locked in their network. Otherwise, at the time of my final breath, when my throat is choked up with cough, how will it be possible to think of you? There is an intimate relationship between the swan and the lotus stem, so the comparison is very appropriate. Without becoming a swan or Paramahamsa, one cannot enter into the network of the lotus feet of the Lord. As stated in the Brahma Samhita, the mental speculators, even by dint of learned scholarship, cannot even dream of the absolute truth by speculating over it for eternity. The Lord reserves the right of not being exposed to such mental speculators. And because they cannot enter into the network stem of the lotus feet of the Lord, all mental speculators differ in conclusion. And at the end, they make a useless compromise by saying, as many conclusions, as many ways. According to one's own inclination, yata rusham. But the Lord is not like a shopkeeper trying to please all sorts of customers in the mental speculator exchange. The Lord is what he is, the absolute personality of God, and he demands absolute surrender unto him only. The pure devotee, however, by following the ways of previous acharyas, authorities can see the Supreme Lord through the transparent medium of a bona fide spiritual master. Anupasyanti. The pure devotee never tries to see the Lord by mental speculation, but by following in the footsteps of the acharyas. Mahajano Jena Gata Sapanta. Therefore, there is no difference of conclusions among the Vaishnava acharyas regarding the Lord and the devotees. Lord Chaitanya asserts that the living entity Jiva is eternally the servitor of the Lord, and that he is simultaneously one with and different from the Lord. This tattva of Lord Chaitanya's is shared by all four sampradayas of the Vaishnava school, all accepting eternal servitude to the Lord even after salvation. And there is no authorized Vaishnava acharya who may think of the Lord and himself as one. He is humbleness of the pure devotee who is 100% engaged in his service, who is the devotee of the Lord in a trance by wish to realize everything. Because to the sincere devotees of the Lord reveals himself as stated in the Bhagavad Gita 10:10. The Lord, being the Lord of intelligence in everyone, even in the non-devotee, favors his devotee with proper intelligence, so that automatically the pure devotee is enlightened with the factual truth about the Lord and his different energies. The Lord is revealed not by one's speculative power or by one's verbal jugglery over the absolute truth. Rather, he reveals himself to a devotee when he is fully satisfied by the devotee's service attitude. Sukadev Goswami is not a mental speculator or compromiser of the theory of as many ways, as many conclusions. Rather, he prays to the Lord only, invoking his transcendental pleasure. That is the way of knowing the Lord. Hare Krishna.
All right. Next. Prabhupada really put a lot into these. second canto purports, every one of them. Text 22. May the Lord, who is the beginning of the creation, amplify the potent knowledge of Brahma from within his heart and inspired him with full knowledge of creation of his own self, and who appeared to be generated from the mouth of Brahma, be pleased with me.
Madhavan Prabhu, can you go ahead and read Papa?
Yes. Hare Krishna Maharaj. As we have already discussed herein before, the Lord as the super soul of all living beings, from Brahma to the insignificant ants, endows all with the required knowledge, potent in every living being. A living being is sufficiently potent to possess knowledge from the Lord in the proportion of 50/64 or 78% of the full knowledge acquirable. The living being, being constitutionally part and parcel of the Lord, is unable to assimilate all the knowledge that the Lord possesses himself. In the conditioned state, the living being is subject to forget everything after a change of body, known as death. This potent knowledge is again inspired by the Lord from within the heart of every living being, and it is known as the awakening of knowledge, for it is comparable to awakening from sleep or unconsciousness. This awakening of knowledge is under full control of the Lord, and therefore we find in the practical world different grades of knowledge in different persons. This awakening of knowledge is neither an automatic nor a material interaction. The supply source is the Lord himself, the Yam Pati. For even Brahma is also subjected to this regulation of the Supreme Creator. In the beginning of creation, Brahma is born first without any father and mother, because before Brahma, there were no other living beings. Brahma is born from the lotus, which grows from the abdomen of the Garbhodakaya Vishnu, and therefore is known as Aja. This Brahma or Aja is also a living being, part and parcel of the Lord, but being the most pious devotee of the Lord, Brahma is inspired by the Lord to create subsequent to the main creation by the Lord through the agency of material nature. Therefore, neither the material nature nor Brahma is independent of the Lord. The material scientist can merely observe the reactions of the material nature without understanding the direction behind such activities, as the child can see the action of electricity without any knowledge of the powerhouse engineer. This imperfect knowledge of the material scientist is due to a poor fund of knowledge. The Vedic knowledge was therefore first impregnated within Brahma, and it appears that Brahma distributed the Vedic knowledge. Brahma is undoubtedly the speaker of the Vedic knowledge, but actually was inspired by the Lord to receive such transcendental knowledge, as it directly descends from the Lord. The Vedas are therefore called Apaurishaya, or not impacted by any created being. Before the creation of the Lord was there, Nayan Paro Vyaktat, and therefore the words spoken by the Lord are vibrations of transcendental sound. There is a gulf of difference between the two qualities of sound, namely Prakrita and Apakrita. The physicists can only deal with Prakrita sound or sounds vibrated in the material sky, and therefore we must know that the Vedic sound recorded in symbolic expressions cannot be understood by anyone within the universe unless and until one is inspired by the vibration of supernatural Aprakrita sound. which descends in the chain of the secret succession from the Lord to Brahma, from Brahma to Narada, and from Narada to Vyasa, and so on. No mundane scholar can translate or reveal the truth import of the Vedic mantra, hymns. They cannot be understood unless one is inspired or initiated by the authorized spiritual master. The original spiritual master is the Lord himself, and the succession comes down through the sources of Parampara, as is clearly stated in the 4th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. So unless one receives the transcendental knowledge from the authorized Para, one should be considered useless, Vipala Mata, even though one may be greatly qualified with the mundane advancement of arts and science. Sukadev Goswami is praying from the Lord by dint of being inspired from within by the Lord, so that he could rightly explain the facts and figures of creation as inquired by Maharaj Parikshit. A spiritual master is not a theoretical speculator like a mundane scholar, but is Stotriyam Brahmanistaham. Hare Krishna.
Shabda Brahman. Mayavadis say that they give the example of a water pot. If it's empty and you bang on it, then it makes noise. But if it's full, then it doesn't make any sound. So they say that if someone is spiritually full, then they'll be quiet. They'll never make any sound. And the Vaishnava says, it'll make a sound, but it'll be spiritual sound, not just silence. Real silence means no material sound, only the spirit, only holy name, only Krishna Katha. That's actually silence, material silence. But sound is very important. All right. So it's handed down by sound. Krishna spoke the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna, Sri Bhagavan Vacha, and the acharyas spoke it. And that sound, and the holy name is chanted audibly, and that purifies the whole universe. (23) May the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who enlivens the materially created bodies of the elements by lying down within the universe, and who in his Purusha incarnation causes a living being to be subjected to the 16 divisions of material modes, which are his generator, be pleased to decorate my statements.
Jyotishari Prabhu.
Yes, Prabhuji, Hare Krishna.
Yeah, please, can you read the purport?
Yes, Hare Krishna. Purport 23. As a fully dependent devotee, Sukadeva Goswami, unlike a mundane man who is proud of his own capability, invoked the pleasure of the personality of Godhead so that his statement may be successful and be appreciated by the hearers. The devotees always thinks of himself as instrumental for anything successfully carried out, and he declined to take a credit for anything done by himself. The godless atheist want to take all credit for his activities, not knowing that even a blade of grass cannot move without the sanction of the Supreme Spirit. The personality of God has Sukadeva Goswami therefore want to move by the direction of a Supreme Lord, who inspired Brahma to speak the Vedic wisdom. The truth described in the Vedic literature are not theories of the mundane imagination, nor are they fictitious. as the less intelligent class of man sometimes thinks. The Vedic truth are all perfect description of the factual truth, without any mistake or illusion. And Sukadeva Goswami want to present the truth of creation not as the metaphysical theory of physical speculation, but as the actual facts, the figures of the subject, since he would be dictated to by the Lord exactly in the same manner as Brahmaji was inspired. As stated in the Bhagavad Gita 15:15, the Lord is himself the father of Vedanta knowledge, and it is he only who knows the factual purport of the Vedanta philosophy. So there is no greater truth than the principle of the religion mentioned in the Vedas. Such Vedic knowledge or religion is disseminated by authorities like Sukadeva Goswami because he is a humble devotional servitor of the Lord who has no desire to become a self-appointed interpreter without authority. That is the way of explaining the Vedic knowledge, technically known as a parampara system or a descending process. The intelligent man can see without mistake that any material creation, whether one's own body or a fruit or a flower, cannot beautifully grown up without a spiritual touch. A greatest intelligent man of the world or the greatest man of science can present everything very beautifully only insofar as the spirit life is there, or in so much as the spiritual touch is there. Therefore, the source of all truth is the Supreme Spirit and not gross matter, as wrongly convinced by the gross materialist. We get information from the Vedic literature that the Lord himself first entered the vacuum of the material universe, and thus all living gradually develop one after another. Similarly, the Lord is situated as localized Paramatma in every individual being. Hence, everything is done by him very beautifully. The 16 principal creative elements, namely earth, water, fire, air, sky, and the 11 senses or sense organs, first developed from the Lord himself and were thereby shared by the living entities. Thus, the material element were created for the enjoyment of the living entities. The beautiful arrangement behind all material manifestation is therefore made possible by the energy of the Lord, and the individual living entity can only pray to the Lord to understand it properly. Since the Lord is supreme entity, different from Sukadeva Goswami, the prayer can be offered to him. The Lord helps the living entity to enjoy the material creation, but he is aloof from such false enjoyment. Sukadev prays for the mercy of the Lord, not only for being helped personally in presenting the truth, but also for helping others to whom he would like to speak. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Nimittamatram Bhavasabhya Sachin. Become an instrument. Doesn't matter if we really, like the same instrument, depending on who's using it, can do wonderful things. So if we allow ourselves to be completely used by Krishna, if we give up the false ego, give up fault finding and all these different things, then we can do wonderful things like so many great devotees have done and are doing at the moment. When you just let Krishna act through you. So that's what Arjuna did. Any comment on that? What would you like to say? Or question?
Not yet for now.
And these are prayers, so we wonder sometimes how to pray. We can learn. Prabhupada said we can learn from all these great devotees how to pray. They're showing us. Okay, we'll go on then. This is
Maharaj, can I continue?
obeisance to Sri Vyasadeva, the incarnation of Vasudeva, who compiled the Vedic scriptures. The pure devotees drink up the nectarine transcendental knowledge dropping from the lotus-like mouth of the Lord.
Hare Krishna. Tamala Krishna Prabhu, can you read it?
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Presence the purport in presence of the specific utterance, Vidasa, or the compound of the system of transcendental knowledge. Sri Shraddha Swami has commented that the respectful obeisances are offered to Sri Vasudeva, who is the incarnation of Vasudeva. Sri Jiva Goswami has agreed to this. Bashra Visvanatha Chakrabarti Thakura has made a further advance, namely that the nectar from the mouth of Lord Krishna is transferred to his different consorts, and thus they learn the final part of music, dance, dressing, decoration, and all such things which are released by the Lord. Such music, dance, and decorations enjoyed by the Lord are certainly not anything mundane, because the Lord is addressed in the verse beginning as para or transcendental. This transcendental knowledge is unknown to the forgetting conditional soul. Sri Vasudeva, who is the incarnation of the Lord, that compiled the Vedic literature to revive the lost memory of the conditional soul without their internal relation with the Lord. One should therefore try to understand the Vedic scripture or the nectar transferred by the Lord to his consort in the conjugal honor. From the lotus-like mouth of Vyasadeva or Sukadeva, by gradual development of transcendental knowledge, one can raise to the state of the transcendental art of music and dance displayed by the Lord in his Rasa Lila. But without having the Vedic knowledge, one can hardly understand the transcendental nature of the Lord, Rasa dance and music. The pure devotees of the Lord, however, can equally release the nectar in the form of the profound philosophical discharge and in the form of kissing by the Lord in the Rasa dance, as there is no mundane distinction between the two. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
All right, simultaneously one and different. Lord Chaitanya is Radha Krishna himself, but he read Bhagavatam, he read everything in the Bhagavatam. not just the rasa dance. The sadhyas, they'll just read that. They'll just read about Krishna with the gopis and all this and think that they usually start thinking they are Krishna and they are gopis. And the Vaishnavas, they relish everything about Krishna's pastimes. They relish the second canto, first canto, fourth canto, third canto. Everything is Krishna. All is different. So we can understand then the transcendental nature of these other pastimes. My dear king, Brahma, the firstborn, on being questioned by Narada, exactly apprised him on this subject, as it was directly spoken by the Lord to his own son, who was impregnated with Vedic knowledge from his very birth.
Hare Krishna, should I continue?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Rasavan
Hare
said
Krishna.
the food. Okay, all right.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah, Hare Krishna, that's one problem.
As soon as Brahma was born of the abdominal lotus petals of Vishnu, he was impregnated with Vedic knowledge, and therefore he is known as Veda Garbha, or a Vedantist from the embryo. Without Vedic knowledge or perfect infallible knowledge, no one can create anything. All scientific knowledge and perfect knowledge are Vedic. One can get all types of information from the Vedas. And as such, Brahma was impregnated with all perfect knowledge so that it was possible for him to create. Thus, Brahma knew the perfect description of creation, as it was exactly apprised to him by the Supreme Lord Hari. Brahma, on being questioned by Narada, told Narada exactly what he had heard directly from the Lord. Narada again told exactly the same thing to Vyasa, and Vyasa also told Sukadev exactly what he heard from Narada. And Sukadev was going to repeat the same statements as he had heard them from Vyasa. That is the way of Vedic understanding. The language of the Vedas can be revealed only by the above-mentioned disciplic succession and not otherwise. There is no use in theories. Knowledge must be factual. There are many things that are complicated, and one cannot understand them unless they are explained by one who knows. The very knowledge is also very difficult to know. It must be learned by the above-mentioned system. Otherwise, it is not at all understood. Sukadev Goswami therefore prayed for the mercy of the Lord so that he might be able to repeat the very same message that was spoken directly by the Lord to Brahma, or what was directly spoken by Brahma to Narada. Therefore, the statements of creation explained by Sukadev Goswami are not at all, as the mundaners suggest, theoretical, but they are perfectly correct. One who hears these messages and tries to assimilate them gets perfect information of the material creation. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport of the second canto, fourth chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled The Process of Creation. Hare Krishna.
Okay, so that's the end of chapter 4. Now I'm looking at the lesson plan. for all these chapters, so there's a lot to go over. I hope it has self-study. Explain how Maharaj Prickett was able to give up family attachments and regulated activities of religion. Why does he ask about the process of creation? That's verses 6 to 10. And analyze the prayers of Sukadeva Goswami, which we just read. So this will be part of, the examinations. Now, the prayers of Sukadeva Goswami also, he's not asking for anything, like all the great prayers, just asking for devotion. And there's analogies, which are important for preaching. When a hungry man is given food, he's satisfied. And he gets the pleasure of eating at the same time. That's actually a verse from the 11th canon. So he doesn't have to ask whether he's fed or not. So the test of hearing Bhagavatam is you're getting positive enlightenment by reading it. Enlightenment means you develop more and more faith and more taste, more and more appreciation of devotees and all those things. And the one from verse 6, common man knows the creation is made by some creator, not created automatically. We have no experience in the practical world that a thing is created automatically. Foolish people say that the creative energy is independent and acts automatically as electrical energy works. But the intelligent man knows that even electrical energy is generated by an expert engineer. We know that very well in West Africa, the electricity doesn't come automatically. Sometimes it doesn't come. And if it is going to come, we have to pay for it. Even if we have a generator, we have to pay for a full. But the scientists in the Mayavadis say everything happened by accident, but that doesn't, there's no evidence of that anywhere, that there was a big, say you don't have electricity, so you just blow up your house. You're not going to end up with a beautiful house and electricity. And then all the different incarnations, expanding from Balaram to Sankarshan and Krishna to Balaram and so on. So then there's chapter 5 coming up. We'll go back to this overviews of all the chapters. Chapter 5. I'm not going to read the whole chapter. You have to study it. But no, what makes Narada think about the existence of someone more powerful than Lord Brahma? What is the frog in the well meaning? That's an easy one, I think. Compare the description of the diluting energy given in verse 3 with that from first canon. So you have to study a lot. At what point is Kala manifested? That's time. And what is the reason for it? I hope you have this. And name the 14 planetary systems. And it tells where they're listed. Second canon, chapter 1, 26 to 28. So they only list to study one verse, but then in the lesson, but then all these things, that means you have to go on your own and go studying the Bhagavatam. Verses 1 through 13. Narada questions Lord Brahma about the phenomenal world, its creation, and Brahma's own position. When Narada realizes that Brahma attained his creative energy through the performance of austerities, he asks Brahma if someone exists who is more powerful than Brahma and from whom Brahma received his powers. Brahma thus explains how the living entity becomes bewildered about the identity of the Supreme Creator. There's a lot of examples given of that. Child will think his father is all powerful, but then he sees his father getting pushed around by his boss or something. His father has to pay taxes. Then he's not all powerful. So Narada was thinking, his father's Brahma, you can imagine. But then he saw that he's meditating and praying for power. So then he asked him, who can be better than you? And so he heard the Bhagavatam. Then Narada Brahma explains, and that's many verses, 15 verses, how the material will manifest in perpetual reactions from Mahavishnu. And then the end, 32 to 45. How the Lord manifests as Garbhodakashayi Vishnu to animate the creation and assume the universal form on which the 14 planetary systems are situated. Discussion topics. 25 elements, verse 26 to 29. Sense objects, 30 and 31. Mind and senses, 24 to 32. Creation of the universe, 32 to 42. And description of the planetary systems as Virat Rupa. The Lord will empower the doer in proportion to his surrender. Frog in the well analogy. Knows the frog in the well analogy? Somebody can say? Anybody? Haribol.
Hare Krishna.
The frog in the well, who knows? That's
Hare Krishna. Yes, frog thinks he's the wider. So as he said, the water is, the ocean is wide like this, it's like this, it's like this. Later, before you can see, he just mess up.
something like that. Stated. Actually, you find this examples in many different, and Buddhists use it, many different people use it. But yeah, somebody tells him about the ocean. He says, well, is it twice as big as my well or 3 times as big? No, so much bigger. And he starts like blowing up his chest, is it this big? Is it this big? And then he just explodes. So that's compared to the mundane scientists who try to understand Krishna. What is God? So they can't imagine, they just go crazy. So it's telling your lesson. So there's just one verse it's mentioning for chapter 5. And then we go over all that stuff and then all these other chapters. So chapter 5. Yeah, it doesn't even give any verses to read. Just go over this overview. Then we went over a lot of chapters, so we didn't do this overview very much. We just read it. And it gets very deep. So it requires, constant references back, or otherwise having a photographic memory. But I haven't found that any of us have that. But by hearing again and again, we remember things. So it says preliminary self-study. Now, why would Narada think about the existence of someone more powerful than Lord Brahma? Now, I actually said that already, but somebody can repeat it. Otherwise, you can look it up. It's text 5, 6, and 7. Chapter 5. You got it? Zalika?
Yes, Maharaj. I'm opening test number 5. Says, as the spider very easily creates the network of his cobweb and manifests his power of creation without being defeated by others, so also you yourself, by employment of your self-sufficient energy, create without any other's help.
Text 6.
And text 6 says that whatever we can understand by the nomenclature, characteristics of and features of a particular thing, superior, inferior, or equal, eternal or temporary, is not created from any source other than that of your Lordship. Thou so great.
Okay, so sounds like he thinks Brahma must be the origin of everything, but then text 7 is where we get the answer. Why?
Yet we are moved to wonder about the existence of someone more powerful than you when we think of your great authorities in perfect discipline, although your good self is so powerful in the matter of creation.
Yeah. So that's why. Intelligent. He saw that he's doing all this tapasya. So there must be someone greater than him. I never heard of Krishna doing tapasya, except when he comes as Narayan Rishi. But that's just, but Krishna, Govinda, Gopal, he's never doing austerities. He doesn't have to go anywhere to get power. He had it when he was a baby. So purport, following the footsteps of Narada Muni, one should not blindly accept his spiritual master as God. Spiritual masters are duly respected on a par with God, but a spiritual master claiming to be God should at once be rejected. But people are so foolish. I don't know if that guy is still around in Ibadan. Right? What was his name? His name, Guru Maharaj.
Guru Maharaj is still claiming tomorrow that he is God.
Yeah, and on the highway when you're coming into Ibadan, there's a sign that says, "Welcome to the home of God." And he gets following, and he has nothing to offer. So it's quite crazy. Then there's another question. This is supposed to be self-study, but what is the meaning of Swarochisa? And what is its role in the creation? And this is verse 11. Swarochisa, by his own effulgence. Again, I create, this is Brahma answering. I create after the Lord's creation by his personal effulgence, known as Brahma Jyoti. Just as when the sun manifests its fire, the moon, the firmament, the influential planets, and the twinkling stars also manifest their brightness. That's what that's the Brahma Jyoti. The sun is a reflection of the Brahma Jyoti. It's called a reflection. Like I said before, it's not a mirror reflection. It's just the power coming through. And the moon is also a reflection of the sun, but not like a mirror. Like we can be called reflections of Krishna, something like Krishna. Like what you see in the mirror, it looks like you, but it's not the same. Then there's a really difficult one. Compare the description of the diluting energy given in verse 3 with Srimad Bhagavatam 1, 7, 4, and 5. You want to have a look at verse 3 of chapter 5? It's going back.
Okay.
My dear Father, all this is known to you scientifically because whatever was created in the past and whatever will be created in the future, or whatever is being created at present, as well as everything within the universe, is within your grip, just like a walnut. Anybody remember the Christian song? He's got the whole world in his hands. He's got the whole world in his hands.
He got the whole world in his hands.
Got you and me, brother. Got you and me, sister. He's got the whole world in his hands. So, you know, we were taught these things, but somehow or other it wasn't taught properly to get the full understanding for most people.
Yeah.
How small we are, that, you know, God as a whole, and he has hands. And then still people are thinking he's not a person, but everybody knows he has hands. Jesus is not God because Jesus called God his Father, and Jesus went to sit at the right hand of God and all these things. Still, they believe this idea that God's not a person. Not everybody. Many Christians understand he is a person, but the Mayavadis are so influential in the science field that they have everybody confused. So that's the description of the material energy, that it's all in the hands of the Lord. For him, it's nothing. He's in absolute control. Maya Dikshena Prakriti, Suyate Sacharanam. Then it says, first canto, chapter 7, verse 4 and 5.
Bhagavatam chapter 7, all right.
First canto, chapter 7, verse 4 and 5. Thus he fixed his mind perfectly engaged by linking it in devotional schools without materialism, and he saw the absolute personality of Godhead along with his external energy, which was full under control. So same description. This is Vyaste's vision.
What verse, Maharaj?
4. First
Okay,
Canto,
verse
chapter
4.
7, verse 4.
Okay, verse 4. Okay, I got it.
That's why it's good to have this Veda-based program. You can search things really quick. You know, if you're just doing an online one, it's slow.
Yeah, thus he feels his mind perfectly engaging.
I downloaded it. It's free. I don't know if you can, you know. Also, you can get it on your phone and look things up really fast. And then verse 5.
Okay, verse 5 says, due to this external energy, the living entity, although transcendental to the three modes of material nature, thinks of himself as a material product, and thus undergoes the reaction of material miseries.
Yeah, we think I'm this body, which is earth, water, fire, air. Like even this dust to dust, ashes to ashes, that's true. That's the body, but it's not the soul. It's everything in the material world, not only our bodies, but everything, all the planets, everything. They come from material energy and they go back to the material energy. So that's the same description, that the material energy is completely under control of the Supreme Lord. At what point is Kala manifested? Kala means time. What does the Bhagavad Gita say about time?
It says that I'm the time, the destroyer of everything.
Yeah. So this is verse 22 of chapter 5. So Krishna says, time I am, kalos mean, I am time. I've come to engage everybody. There's nothing more powerful in the material world than time. The time is Krishna. When there's the Pradhan and the Mahatattva and all these things we were reading the other day, nothing's happening. It's just elements. But then when Krishna enters as time, then everything starts happening. Everything starts moving and everything starts wearing out and changing all the time. That's due to the time factor. So we're very much controlled by time. In some places, like it's so much intense. You know, people are running because they have to catch a train on time or a bus on time. They have to be to work on time. They have to do something on time. They have to be to school on time. You have to turn in your paper on time. You know, you have to wake up on time. So the alarm clock is a big business. Time is Krishna and it's controlling everyone. No one can stop time. No one can conquer time. In due course of time, all the big mountains and everything is finished by the actions of time. You know, Mother Earth in 12th Canto, she's saying, so many big kings have conquered and tried to conquer and think they're the controllers, but they're all gone in due course of time and nobody even remembers them. They're not even in the history books anymore. After the incarnation of the first Purusha Karna, the Mahatattva, the principle of material nature, is generated, and then time is manifested. And then time causes the three modes of nature to appear. And they transform into activity. So after the Karnadakashaya Vishnu is created, then the Mahatattva, and then time manifests. It means time appears. Time is always there, but Tanmatra. That's a detailed question, but these are things to think about. From the darkness of false ego, the first of the five elements, the sky is generated. In its subtle form, the quality of sound, exactly as a seer is seen. And there's no mention on. The Tanmatra is sound, and that's created from the sky. And that's Om. Om is the original sound which creates everything else. Remember that? You're taking notes. Tanmatra, that's a sound. Describe the transformations of the modes of ignorance. It looks like these are open book tests, you know. I don't know if you're supposed to exactly memorize all of these things. You've been taking tests along the way, so I don't know. Verse 25 to 31. You want to read those?
What's chapter?
Chapter 5 still. This is the chapter we're on.
Okay, first canto.
The overview. So there, yeah, there's a whole section there. 25 we just read, in 26 to 29, 26, 27, 28, 29, 4 verses which describe that, so you can read it.
Okay, says that. So this 25, 26, sorry. Should I start from 25 or 26? This text 26. Of yesterday, in that association and by the mercy of those great Vedantists, I could hear them describe the attractive activities of Lord Krishna. Oh, this is first canto, chapter 5, sorry. Second canto, chapter 5, we're reading.
Second canto, chapter 5, text 26, 27, 28.
Yes, Maharaj. Yes, sorry. Yeah, it says that from the darkness of false ego, the first of the 5 elements, namely, the sky is generated. Its subtle form is the quality of sound, exactly as the seer is in relationship with the sin. And 26 to 29 says, because the sky is transformed, the air is generated with the quality of touch. And by previous succession, the air is also full of sound and the basic principles of duration of life, sense perception, mental power, and bodily strength. When the air is transformed in course of time, and not just cause, fire is generated, taking shape with sense of touch and sound. Since fire is also transformed, there is a manifestation of water, full of juice and taste. As previously, it also has form and touch, and it is also full of sound and water, being transformed from all variegatedness on earth, appears odorous, and as previously, become qualitatively full of juice, touch, sound, and form, respectively.
And then the next one also, 30 and 31 are part of that.
Okay, test number 30. That it says that from the mode of goodness, the mind is generated and becomes manifest. As also the 10 demigods controlling the bodily movement. Such demigods are known as the controller of directions. the controller of air, the sun god, the father of Daksha, Prajapati, the Aswini Kumaras, the fire god, the king of heaven, the worshipful deity in heaven, the chief of the Adityas, and Brahmaji, the Prajapatis, all come into existence.
31.
31 says that by further transformation of the mode of passion, the sense organs like the ear, skin, nose, eyes, tongue, mouth, hands, genitals, legs, and the outlet for evacuating, together with intelligence and living energy, are all generated.
And then this is Brahma teaching Narada in 32. It says, the best of the transcendentalists, the formation of the body cannot take place as long as these created parts, the elements, senses, mind, and modes of nature are not assembled. So it's the time factor that assembles everything. You know, otherwise you just have all these elements. But when the time factor comes in, then it arranges everything by creating on this way. So you can understand why, like the Bible just says in the beginning, God created, you know, that's fact. That's the essence of the whole thing. But here it's very scientifically explaining how we created everything, you know, which is something. But if one can just, ultimately the idea is to have faith. That's Krishna's behind everything. That's Bhagavad Gita, as Krishna is saying again and again. And name the 14 planetary systems. That's text 39 to 41.
From the forefront of the chest up to the neck of the universal form of the Lord are situated the planetary systems named Janaloka and Tapoloka, whereas Satyaloka, the topmost planetary system, is situated on the head of the form. The spiritual planets, however, are eternal.
Those are the highest planets in the universe, Janaloka, Tapaloka, and Satyaloka. They're not annihilated in all the short men, you know, when on the temporary, there's annihilation every time Lord Brahma takes rest. But those planets, they don't get annihilated. 40 and 41.
41 says that 41 says, my dear son Narada, know from me that there are 7 lower planetary systems out of the total 14. The first planetary system, known as Atala, is situated on the waist. The second, Vitala, is situated on the thighs. The third, Sutala, on the knees. The fourth, Talatala, on the shanks. The fifth, Ma'atala, on the ankles. The sixth, Rasatala, on the upper portion of the feet. And the seventh, Patala, on the sole of the feet. Thus, the Virat form of the Lord is full of all planetary systems.
Those are called the lower planets. They're not necessarily hellish, you know, like Bali Maharaj was given as Sutala, right? And it was more opulent than the heavenly planets. Let's see if it. Name, it doesn't seem to, it doesn't name the middle planets. This is only 10. And it says also in second canto, chapter 1, 26 to 28. I can see if that's
Second Corinthians chapter 1, text, what not text, man?
it says second canto, chapter 1, 26 and 28.
26 to 28 says, 26 says, essence who have realized it have studied that the planet known as Patala constitutes the bottoms of the feet of this universal Lord. And the ears and the pils are the Rasatala planets. The ankles are the Mahatala planets. And the shanks constitute the Talatala planets. Then 27 says, the knees of the universal form are the plenary system of the name Sutala, and the two thighs are the Vitala and Atala planetary system. The hips are Mahitala, and outer space is the depression of Vishnu. 28.
More or less the same, right? Just comparing it to the universal form. It doesn't list all 14. So the middle planets are Bhumandala, but there's different, I guess there's a few different levels there. All right. Analogies from in this canto. These analogies are good because that we can get a little bit of understanding of Krishna by comparing to things in the material world which are themselves inconceivable, but they're just little sparks of Krishna's Shaktis. And mentioned in fifth canto, chapter 5, because we're going over fifth chapter. Self-sufficiency is a sun. The sun is not illuminated by any other body.
Fifth canto chapter.
Narada compares the position of Brahma to the self-sufficiency of a spider who creates his own field of activities without anyone else's help, which in itself is an amazing thing, how a spider can make the spider web. But then it's compared to Krishna, because if a fly or any other insect touches the spider web, he gets stuck to it and he can't get out. And the more he struggles to get out, the more he gets entangled in it. But the spider can walk around all over the web, and then he comes up and sometimes he has some poison or he ties up the other insect even more. Similarly, Krishna creates the material world, his own energy, but we come in and we get all entangled, and the more we try to find our own way out, the more we get stuck in it. Right? And I don't know if you had those stories in Africa. We had in America children's stories. Uncle Remus was an old wise grandfather or something. He was an Afro-American, actually, teaching the children. So he talked about, it was a rabbit and a fox who were always in competition with each other. Fox was always trying to catch the rabbit, but the rabbit was really clever. And so I can't remember exactly which one it was, but somebody made something that like a statue of a baby, but it was made out of tar. And so this rabbit or someone tried to embrace that baby or something, and got stuck in the tar, and then he tried to push away with his feet, and his feet got stuck and finally got completely covered. So it didn't give the example that that's how we're in the material world. And, we come in and we get attached to some mode of nature, then we're suffering. So we try to get out of suffering. And we get more entangled, more entangled, more entangled. And the only way we can get out is to take shelter of the Supreme Lord who created the whole thing. He can take you out. He can come in and go out himself. If God comes in the material world, like people try to say God comes and he becomes a human, or, he's suffering, he comes, and that's impossible. He can come and go as he pleases. Just like the king can go to the prison house, and he can go into the prison house, he can go wherever he wants, and he can take somebody out with him if he wants to. Nobody can say anything. Even the worst criminal, if the king wants to take him out, he can. So Krishna can do that, but we have to surrender to Krishna. The frog in the well, we went over. Another analogy, these are just analogies.
What verse, man?
That like the small seed of a banyan tree or any tree can create a big tree. The banyan tree is a very good example because the seed is very tiny and the tree is the biggest tree. But Krishna has put all that potency of the big tree into one tiny seed. So the same way he's put the whole potency of the whole universe in the Brahma Jyoti. And then Brahma is able to utilize it. Just like a gardener, you plant a seed and then you have to take care of it. Farmer has to plant a seed sometimes at some protected place, small pots, and let it grow a little bit, and then put the small tree into the ground, sprout. The modes of nature are products of the energy of the Lord, but they're just like master and servant. The modes of nature, they're servants of Krishna. He's a supreme master. And just like the rainy season comes and goes on schedule, and nowadays it's not always on schedule, but it still comes and goes. Creation takes place and is annihilated under the control of the Lord. Everything is under the control of the Lord. People challenge, why did Krishna make trouble? Why does he make terrible places? Why did he give us free will if he knew we were going to misuse it? But that's the gift, right? Why does Krishna give us free will? Anybody can say? Haribol.
Hare Krishna, Maharaj. Yes, Maharaj.
Why does Krishna give free will? Because we can make so much trouble by misusing free will.
It's out of his fatherly love for us to be able to voluntarily love him back. But Krishna loves us. He wants us to love him back. So to be able to exhibit that love for him, he gave us the independence. But unfortunately, we most often misuse it.
Yeah, why can't he just make us love him anyway?
Then there won't be love, because love has to do with two. Love cannot be just as a bit within just a person. It has to be two times. Love is between God. It has to be within two persons. So therefore, Krishna manifests himself as Srimati Radharani to show how to love. So the living entities are given the opportunity to be able to exhibit that love so that love can prevail. But if he just forces us to love him, then there is no more love. Then it becomes robots.
Yeah, just like anybody in authority, a father, a government, a teacher, a husband, wife, they can force obedience by force, right? Make you a slave. And if you don't obey, they'll beat you up or fire you from your job or, put you in the prison. But there's no love there. But if someone has love, like Prabhupada said, the devotees are obeying him, they're doing whatever he says out of love. Love is so powerful. People have love for something, they'll do anything to serve that object of their love. It's not like we don't know, but that's what we read, like in Iraq with Saddam Hussein. Everybody would say we love our president, but if they even said anything different, they would be put into prison or killed. That it didn't really love, Love has to be voluntary. Krishna is all attractive. And if someone hears about Krishna submissively, they'll naturally start to develop love for Krishna. So you have all developed some kind of love because you want to study the Srimad Bhagavatam. That requires some love. Discussion topics. The 25 elements. Anybody, did we read the 25 elements? Verse 26 to 29. I think we did.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, can I read?
Yeah. Yes, Prabhu, you can go ahead.
Yeah.
Text 26 to 29, translation. Because the sky is transformed, the air is generated with the quality of touch, and by previous succession, the air is also full of sound and the basic principle of duration of life, sense perception, mental power, and the bodily strength. When the air is transformed in course of time and nature's course, fire is generated, taking shape with a sense of touch and sound. Since fire is also transformed, there is a manifestation of water, full of joys, full of juice and taste. As previously, it also has form and touch, and is also full of sound. And water being transformed from the variegatedness on earth appears orders, and as previously becomes qualitatively full of juice, touch, sound, and form respectively. Purport: the whole process of creation is an act of gradual revolution and development from one element to another, reaching up to the variegatedness of the earth as so many trees, plants, mountains, rivers, reptiles, birds, animals, and varieties of human beings. The quality of sense perception is also evolutionary, namely generated from sound, then touch, and from touch to form. Taste and odor are also generated along with the gradual development of sky, air, fire, water, and earth. They have all mutually the cause and effect of the other. But the original cause is the Lord himself in planetary portion, as Mahavishnu lying in the casual water of a Mahatattva. As such as Lord Krishna is described in Brahma Samhita as the cause of all causes, and this is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita 10.8 as follows. The quality of sense perception are fully represented in the earth, and they are manifested in other element to a lesser extent. In the sky, there is a sound only, whereas in the air, there are a sound and touch. In the fire, there are sound, touch, and shape. And in the water, there is a taste also. Although with the other perceptions, namely sound, touch, and shape, in the earth, however, there are all the above mentioned qualities with an extra development of order also. Therefore, on the earth, there is a full display of variety, variegatedness,
Relatedness.
variegatedness of life, which is originally stated with the basic principle of air. Disease of a body take place due to derangement of air within the earthly body of the living beings. Mental disease result from the spatial derangement of the air within the body. And as such, yogic exercise is especially beneficial to keep the air in the order so that disease of the body become almost nil by such exercises. We, when they are properly done, the duration of a life also increases, and one can have control over death also by such practice. A perfect yogi can have command over the death and quit a body at the right moment when he is competent to transfer himself to the suitable planet. The Bhakti Yogi, however, surpasses all the yogis because by dint of his devotional service, he is promoted to the region beyond the material sky and is placed in one of the planet in the spiritual sky by the supreme will of the Lord and the controller of everything. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Okay, so who knows these 26 elements?
26 elements.
Starting with earth, fire, water, air. I remember I was riding in the car with Bhakti Tirtha one time, and he asked, what are the 26 elements? So the first is earth, water, fire, air, and ether. Panchabhuta. Mind, intelligence, and false ego. And I was finding so many references in mentioning 26 elements, but doesn't list them. And in what we've been reading, it didn't give the list either. So I'm just trying to find it. Anybody knows any other ones? Sometimes the mind goes blank, you know. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Nobody knows, huh? We're ignorant. We all know these first ones.
Fire into the 26 elements.
Earth, water, fire, air, mind, intelligence, and false ego. That's from the Bhagavad Gita right away, and it's quoted millions of times in there.
They mentioned somewhere.
Okay, anyway, we have to, it's not given in what we've been reading, so, but it is mentioned quite a few times in different places. So I don't know how many more lessons there's supposed to be. We've gone over we started with, and then if you have this overview and all this, and it's a good idea to go back over it. We did something in the first canto, right?
5 elements. What? 5 elements. There's water, air, fire, sky.
Then the prayers of Sukadeva Goswami.
5 elements. Earth, water, fire, air, sky.
Second canto, chapters 1 through 5. So there, there's a lot. We read a lot of stuff. And there's self-study. I hope you were doing that, but you have to research back, and then you have to have access to the book or to the internet or something to be going back and looking up all these things. If we wanted to go through that, it would take many more lessons but there's overview. Chapter 1 breaks it down into different groups of verses. Perket's question was what? Who remembers? Famous question. When he approached the sages. Do I have to say? What is someone supposed to do, particularly a man at the time of death? What is his duty? Particularly someone at the point of death. What is his duty? That's his question. So Sukadeva Goswami says this question is glorious because it's beneficial to all people who are too attached to materialistic life and family, are grihamadis. It describes their symptoms and their points out one's actual duty to hear about, glorify, and remember the personality of Godhead. What's a grihamadi and what is a grihasta? All of you are, I don't know if you're all grihastas. I hope you're grihastas, not grihamadis. What is a grihasta? What is a grihamadi? What does griha mean?
Kriya means house. Dramedi means enjoy. One who enjoys the sense, the household, and the gram. One who serves Grihastha is one who uses the house in serving.
Right. Medi mean someone's living a house just to die. Grihamedi is just for sense gratification, just enjoying the family, enjoying sex, enjoying everything. Grihastha is one who's living in the house, but it's for Krishna. He's chanting the holy name, he's reading Bhagavad Gita, and like that. Verses 7 through 16, Sukadeva Goswami cites his own life as an example to demonstrate how even the topmost transcendentalists take pleasure in describing the glories of the Lord. Sukadeva Goswami will now recite that very Srimad Bhagavatam he heard from his father, from Maharaj Parikshit. He recommends the process of constant chanting of the holy name of the Lord for all, whether one is free from desires, desirous of self-satisfied, and cites the story of Maharaj Katwanga. Okay. Now, the Maharaj Katwanga is something that's mentioned quite often. Sukadeva was in the womb. He was fully self-realized, so he didn't want to come out where he might get in Maya. But he heard the Bhagavatam and then he wanted to come out. So who knows the story of Maharaj Katwanga? I have to go for 1 minute. I'll be right, or 2 minutes maybe. Huh? My wife went for dressing. When she comes and I leave, okay, I'm just finishing up this class. Yeah, that's, I don't need this. Well, maybe. So you want to drink something? I drank already. Oh, yeah, okay. But I could use some, I don't know, I shouldn't say hot water. I should say boiling hot. Yeah, sure, I'll get it. Because I make herb tea, but it doesn't work with warm water. Oh, I'll bring it. This is warm water. Sure. Boil, I mean, it's boiling. Okay, really boil. Okay, I'll get it. Because boiling water can cool down. Yeah. But cool water can't warm up. I don't have that power. All right. Did somebody tell the story of Maharaj Katwanga?
Yeah, the story of Maharaj Katwanga is a story. There was a fight between the demigods and the demons, and the demigods came to the earth and they requested Maharaj Katwanga to assist them in fighting. And at the end of the fight, he came back, and I think the king said that he asked about how long his time is remaining to die.
Yeah,
And
they
he was
offered him
told
benediction.
they offered him a benediction, yeah, right? So, and he asked how much time does he have to die before he dies, and they told him 24 minutes. And then after that, he uses the remaining last 24 minutes of his life to meditate, sit down and meditate on the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of God. And
they told him he had a very short time to live. So he just went to surrender to Krishna, perfected his life. So that's the point. And there's a verse that says, what is the use of a long life without full consciousness? Better one moment of full consciousness. Trees sometimes live for thousands of years. Africa has some kind of tree. There's very big trees that live very long. America, they have those redwood trees, thousands of years old. But they're trees. They just have to stand out in the elements. 14 to 21. Sukadeva Goswami recommends detachment from material life and fear of death. One should leave home and practice self-control in a sacred place, bathing regularly, sitting alone. One should chant the pranava mantra Om, and the mind will become progressively spiritualized. Therefore, one can progress into meditation on the form of Vishnu and come to the level of devotional service. So we're very fortunate, Kali Yuga, that Lord Chaitanya is giving us devotional service right off in the form of the Lord. We have deities, we have, descriptions of if we can meditate on the form of the Lord. But in the fourth canto or third canto, Kapila Devahuti says, anyone who is chanting the holy name of the Lord has understood that they've already done all these other things. They've already done all the yagyas and all the tapasyas and all the, mantras and all the different things in some other life. And then with Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda, there's also just causes mercy. Like me, for instance, no qualification, but Lord Nityananda just picks us up out of the, the heap and somehow uses us in his service. We're very fortunate. Then verses 22 to 39, in answer to Prikit's inquiry regarding where to fix the mind so it could become purified of the dirty things, Sukadeva Goswami describes meditation on the gross universal form of the Lord, because there is nothing more than this in the material world. One who does not concentrate his mind upon the Supreme Personality of Godhead will be misled and will cause his own degradation. So the universal form is described, it's an imaginary, it's for neophytes to help them understand that God is a person. So it describes the different parts of the universe as different parts of the body of the Lord, the huge, gigantic body, so that we can get some idea. And hopefully when we see the material energy, we see the clouds, we see the sky, we see the mountains, we see the rivers, we can remember this is a part of the body of the Lord. Everything should remind us of Krishna. The mountain is not Krishna, but it's part of Krishna. Everything is Krishna. When we see, like we were at the university campus yesterday, and they had this, such a big sports stadium, can hold 60 or 80,000 people or something. And there's so many of those all over the world. So people can watch athletes and admire their tremendous physical, abilities. but they're not thinking that Krishna says, I'm the ability in man. It's really Krishna. It's not me doing it. But because they had some desire, and Krishna, and they did some tapasya, and they practiced, the practice is tapasya. People, for spiritual things, people don't want tapasya. And some people think they can, become a famous big athlete or something without tapasya, but that's not possible. You have to do the tapasya. Can't. Spiritual life also, but our tapasya is not so difficult. Take prasadam, chant the holy name, dance, read the Bhagavatam daily. It's not so difficult. All right, so that's time for today. There's a lot of things. It says for self-study. And it gives the verses to look up, to get some idea. And like I said, we took an hour here just to do one chapter. So it's a serious thing. But that's what we're supposed to be doing. That's our life, just, be absorbed. And then the more we try to remember these things, the more we'll remember them throughout the day. Chant in the morning, hear the Bhagavatam in the morning, and then that you can take that with you throughout the day. You don't have to, that feeling that, it depends on what kind of work someone does. If you're just a driver or something, you can chant while you're driving and everything, but not with your beads. But some work you have to really concentrate and, and hearing and studying, or, formulas or numbers, or, teaching some mundane subject. But that understanding that it's all coming from Krishna will always be with you. So I thank you all for having this desire to hear Srimad Bhagavatam. Give me a chance to spend a few hours. Please carry on with this. There's no limit. If you read Bhagavatam 41 pages a day, in 1 year you'll finish.
What happened? I'm not hearing.
The whole Bhagavatam. If you read 51 verses, it's also you'll finish in 1 year.
Hare Krishna.
I'm staying in one house, and the small son is 10 years old now. He's already read the whole Bhagavatam. His mother reads it with him. So there's a lot of far out families in the world now. He's read the Bhagavatam and the Chaitanya Charitamrita. It took 1.5 years, they said, to read the Bhagavatam. But he's also studying mathematics way ahead of his, where in the school class that he's in. Children study Bhagavatam, they'll just be smarter than everyone else. It won't hold back their ability to study in school. It'll enhance it. Okay, so thank you very much. Let's chant for a couple of mantras.
Okay.
Right.
So everyone, please can you unmute? Hare Krishna,
Krishna,
Hare
Hare
Krishna,
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 Hare Hare.
Hare,
Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram.
Hare,
Hare Krishna, Hare
Krishna,
Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare
Krishna,
Hare.
Hare Hare.
Hare Ram,
Hare
Hare
Rama,
Ram,
Hare
Ram
Rama,
Ram.
Rama,
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna,
Krishna,
Krishna Krishna,
Krishna,
Hare Hare.
Hare,
Hare Ram,
Hare
Hare
Rama,
Ram,
Hare
Ram
Rama,
Ram.
Rama, Hare.
So you see, Salika, because of his tapasya and living up there in Jas with all the fun, now he has this big house, right? Big house on the beach. It looks like, is it? Yeah.
Illusory house, Maharaj.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay.
Oranga.
So, dear devotees, there are 5 of us here. I think yesterday I mentioned that we need to agree on a date that the exams will be taking place. Jonathan wants us to get a date by ourselves. Have we been able to think of a day within the week that we can take out time to do the exams? He doesn't want the flow of the teachings to be interrupted with the exams on the weekend. So what do we think? Or do we still prefer that it has to be by the weekend?